Welcome back, everyone. Some good news on the social front that the hashtag InnovativeYR is trending in the top 5 on Twitter. Top 5 for the Toronto area. That's pretty exciting. So thank you for those who are turning to social media to talk about this morning's festivities. I know it's hard to get a room full of politicians to stop talking for a bit. I kid. Okay, without further ado, it is time to introduce our panel discussion where we can hear about different perspectives on the same topic. And this morning, the conversation will focus on this. What are the conditions that foster innovation? And I'd like to introduce the moderator for the panel discussion, who will, in turn, introduce our esteemed panelists and lead the Q&A session. Moderating today's panel is Alfonso Licata, CEO of ORION. Alfonso Licata has a strong track record in the design and launch of new and disruptive enterprises in the technology space and across multiple market segments. At ORION, Alfonso helps drive the organization's strategy forward in a highly collaborative and strategic manner. Please put your hands together for Alfonso Licata.
Good morning. Hopefully everybody's having an enjoyable time, a learned time. I thought maybe I'll just provide sort of faces to names, and then I'll get into the actual sort of introduction of ORION and why we're here. So closest to me is Michael Pickering of CloudConstable, Humera Malik of Canvas Analytics. Then we have Miron, Derchansky, and I practiced, of Leo Labs, and David Pascoe of Magna. All right. So as already discussed, the panel today is to discuss, if you will, the conditions that enable innovation. At least that's the theme, and we're going to hear from each of the panelists their take on that and how they've, if you will, worked within those parameters. So let me start off with a little bit about ORION. For years, the Ontario government has, as we know, focused on supporting an innovation economy, an innovation agenda. The government has recognized that it brings sustainable jobs, as we've heard, and jobs bring greater taxes and, in turn, economic well-being. However, it's not just adding this government program to that government fund, steer it up, and sort of success. There's more to it than that. There's a lot more complexity, a web of infrastructure, people, investment, and et cetera, as the panelists will illustrate. ORION is a powerful partner in this innovation economy. We have more than 25 communities in Ontario that rely on ORION's advanced digital infrastructure to discover and collaborate. Over 100 institutions, some of which whose leaders and leadership are in here today. We have 2 million students, educators, researchers, and innovators, including municipalities, libraries, schools, colleges, hospitals, and innovation centers. How does ORION empower the innovation economy? ORION acts as a community hub ourselves, providing access to services for all, enhancing learning, central meeting points facilitating community interactions, while connecting other community hubs in the offline world together. For example, the Hamilton Public Library connects to Mohawk City College to deliver alternative programming, offering a community maker space. South Lake Hospital, which is in your own area, Dr. Carolyn McGregor streams vital signs from premature babies to supercomputers to predict when they're getting sick and intervene before they get sick. She's extending that learning, she's extending that program and that project into McMaster Children's Hospital in Hamilton, improving the data, saving more lives. University researchers gather all sorts of data they share with industry, which in turn spins out interesting and high-value IP, and IP then becoming sort of startups into the region. support intelligent communities through collaboration with global experts, access to any tool or any piece of data, anytime, anywhere, but also connect the people and tools right here in our own community, in your community. For example, or rather these examples all support economic development in a knowledge economy. How many of you have heard the story of NASA and the space pen? You guys ever heard of that, sort of NASA inventing a space pen? I heard it. I looked into it. And the story actually has some variance to it. I always thought that NASA had invented the pen, but that's not the case at all. The story goes like this. NASA spent something like about $60+ million to develop a space pen back in the 60s and 70s. And back in the 60s and 70s, $60 million might as well have been $3 trillion. So that astronauts could actually write in outer space. At the same time, the Russians or Soviets in the Soviet program gave their astronauts pencils. Turns out there's more to the story. The space pen was actually designed by the Fisher Pen Company, which used its own money to develop it, and then sold it to NASA. But there's still something to be learned there. Sometimes we spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to create high-tech solutions when a cheap, simple solution is right before our eyes. It's not just about technology, or rather, it's not just about innovation. It's not just about technology. Sometimes it's about new processes, new ways of thinking. Here's what I know and what Orion knows. Innovation happens when humans connect. Innovation happens when humans connect. That's why we're here today, to learn from these particular humans. So how can we connect more humans? We want to connect further reaches of the province. Or rather, this is Orion's mandate, or part of Orion's mandate, to connect rural, remote, and northern communities, to help empower their economic development through innovation. Innovation beyond location. This is the role that Orion can play by enabling more people to participate in the economic agenda, the innovation agenda. We want you to engage us. Orion wants to work with you and to be active participants in intelligent communities, intelligent community initiatives. We have the network, and we want to bring it to bear. So I've already introduced the panelists. What I'm going to ask is for each one of them to, if you will, speak a bit. And I'll start off with David, or Dave, on the end there. Dave, you can see. Do you want to come up here, or you can speak at the mic, or it's up to you?
Sorry. My name is David Pascoe. I'm Vice President of Engineering and R&D at Magna International. One of the key things that my group is doing is open innovation. So that's reaching out to national labs, startup companies, universities around the world. So we have people posted on different continents doing that. And we're trying to ultimately find technologies that can help us meet our future product portfolio.
Miron?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Miron. I'm here with Leo Pharma, which is a Danish company, oldest healthcare company in Denmark, focused primarily on dermatology. And Leo has selected Markham as one of its pilot locations for an innovation lab. They invested about $100 million for 3 years. And essentially what we do is we build digital therapeutics to help patients with skin conditions and beyond.
Thank you, Miron.
Hi, good morning. Humera, Malik. I'm CEO, founder of Canvas Analytics. And we have taken on the journey to transform one of the world's oldest industries, which is the industrial side. And to what Joel said earlier about sensors, we actually go in and help them make use of the data that gets generated from their sensors and help them innovate one of the oldest business processes that they have running in their plant operations, and transform their business to actually use that data to actually look at the future of how these processes are going to perform, how their assets are going to perform, how much energy they're going to use, and how they can actually apply cost savings, because they operate on very thin margins, is how they can apply savings to running their plant operations and optimize these plant operations.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Pickering here with CloudConstable. Because this is a broadband and innovation event, we're here, I think partly because I like to think we're doing something pretty innovative as well. In fact, we're actually part of the IBM Watson AI X Prize competition. So we're one of about 140 other teams from around the world competing, and this is one of the most recent X Prize competitions. This one is about AI and how can we harness the power of AI to help people and help society. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that in a bit, I think.
Yeah. Dave, do you want to just lead into that right now? Sort of speak to what it is that you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. So because this is a broadband event, I thought rather than just talk, I'd show some stuff. And I see a lot of you have smartphones and so forth. So if you find something of interest, by all means, have a look at the website. I'll show you where those are. And I guess, my computer seems to be up and projecting.
Yeah.
Don't you love technology?
When it works.
When it works.
Exactly, exactly.
Not that we've ever been in it when it doesn't, right?
For sure. So I think we heard a little bit about some of the exhibits that are around the room. I'm over there, and I've got a sponsor, Crosswing, right beside me. They're showing their robot. I've got my other big sponsor in the other corner, Axiom Audio. So they are showing some wireless speaker system, high-quality wireless speaker system product. And I thank them both for coming and for their support. But let's talk a little bit first about what is an X Prize and how does it foster innovation. And I think I have a video that the gentleman at the back might be able to play for me.
Imagine no.
Thanks. So X Prize is really about fostering innovation, and they sponsor basically competitions where they get people like me and like you to enter as a team and come up with a solution. The IBM Watson AI X Prize competition is the first one that takes a little bit of a different format because the idea is use AI to solve a problem, but they haven't defined the problem. We have to define it ourselves. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how I've defined a problem that we're trying to solve. But within the IBM Watson AI X Prize competition, they tell me I have to say the whole name of the competition every time. Within that competition, the other teams have each defined their own problem to solve, and many of them are quite different. There's all kinds of different problems being worked on by the different competing teams. So you can see the website here, ai.xprize.org, and as I said, I encourage you to have a look. There's lots of interesting information there. So one of the questions, of course, is, well, if you're trying to solve this problem solve a problem using AI, what really is that problem? So for us, and I'm showing my website now, so it's a little bit of a plug here. So we're looking at a lot of the challenges actually that people encounter through access to the internet and actually through access to broadband technology, because it's become so ubiquitous and everybody has access on multiple devices and it's become very much a part of our lives. But at the same time, there are a lot of a lot of challenges, a lot of risks that you face when you're out there. You're all familiar with the whole concept of phishing emails and so forth, but it goes much beyond that, especially if you're either a child or a senior. Seniors typically may have a little less experience with technology, and they're not used to interacting online and having people who say they're there to be their friend, when actually in a lot of cases they're there to defraud them. And I personally know people whose parents have been defrauded from fairly significant amounts of their retirement fund. So there are lots of fraud complaints, and I had a number from 2014, which is the latest information I had. This is from the FBI in the US, and they're reporting 2,500 fraud complaints from people 50 plus, and the losses total over 60 million. That's just one country, one year. Sextortion, of course, has become quite an issue as well, probably more for youngsters than oldsters. And there's some statistics about that available, and it's a fairly significant problem as well, kind of a different take on some of the challenges with the use of broadband. And just as a kind of a closing observation on the topic, at any given moment, the statistics say there's about 750,000 child predators online. So these are the kinds of problems that we're trying to help solve through AI. So I actually have, if it works, one of the fun things about doing live demos, of course, is you never really know if it's going to work. But let's see if we can introduce a part of the solution that we're putting together. We'll see if she wants to talk herself a little bit.
Hello, I'm Cloud Girl, the CloudConstable household assistant. I'm glad to be here at the York Region Broadband and Innovation Summit. Right now I'm just a demo, but once I'm fully functional, it will be my job to help keep you in touch with the rest of your family, no matter where they may be. I'll help with everyday tasks like managing calendars and playing music and movies. At the same time, I'll try to guide the family towards safe and healthy interactions, while steering clear of potentially harmful threats such as cyber fraud and sextortion. I hope that you'll enjoy interacting with me.
Actually, Michael, maybe you can introduce us to what that was. What it was that we were
Okay,
actually
sure,
sort of
absolutely.
give us some context.
So Cloud Girl is an animated avatar, and I like to think of her as a bit of a superhero, actually. She's there to help you. So we don't have the voice recognition part hooked up yet. We're working on that, among other things, which we can talk about a little bit later as well. But the idea of Cloud Girl is that she's like a personal assistant or a family assistant, social convener. She can play music and videos for you. And while you're interacting with her, she's listening to what's going on and transcribing it. And all of the transcriptions, the logs of the conversations, interactions with others online or however you're interacting, are able to be stored in the cloud and analyzed using machine learning models, which, as a matter of fact, thanks for that. That brings me to the next part of the demo. So the idea is that, as we heard about Alexa and some of the chatbots options that were discussed earlier. And the idea is we're trying to take this to the next level and maintain some history and try to understand more about the context of the interactions, and really pay attention to some of the triggers or warning signs that there might be something a little bit shady going on. So one of the challenges that we have, XPRIZE is a long-term competition. It's actually, the final round is in 2020. So the whole nature of the challenge, or the reason that this kind of problem, I feel, is a good candidate to be a grand challenge for an XPRIZE, is that there are lots of different pieces and parts to the solution. You have to build a solution that people are interested in and are interested in using, and you have to find the data that you need and be able to train machine learning models to understand what those triggers, what those warning signs are. Right now, we don't have a lot of access to good data for training models, but there is one particular thing that I can show you that this is a live demo now. This is also on our website. By all means, you can go have a look. And I can enter text here like, I don't know, you dirty rat. I wanted something short. It's a little bit old school. So let's check. So it's going to think a little while. And it says, yeah, that looks a little aggressive. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to do and trying to get to with our avatar and with our solution. I think we have to move on now.
We do. Thank you, Michael. Humera, please.
Alfonso, if you don't mind, we can swap places.
Go ahead. I'll just stand.
I've got too much energy, too much coffee in me.
I hear you.
So I'll just wait. So again, I'm a very proud Canadian company. We were actually recognized recently as the top 12 AI companies in Canada. So the reason for being here in the York region especially, actually, is because this is one of the key hubs for Canvas Analytics. This is the hub for manufacturing, and we very much focus in that area. So I'm very pleased to be here and talking to this region and all the folks here. We're talking about a lot of innovation right now. And in terms of innovation, I feel that this industry, from an industrial perspective, actually every time it has to go through innovation, it actually goes through a revolution. That's how hard and long it takes for an industry like this to go through innovation. And this is really where, do I have a clicker or?
Well, there's something here.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if I can. So in an environment like industrial environment, as I said, when you have to go through innovation, it has to go through an industrial revolution. And this industrial revolution started back in somewhere in the late 1700s when the first electrical powered plants were introduced. From there on, it moved into mass productions. From there on, it started to move into electronics, which we went into the 1960s. And then from there, it actually took us this long to get to this point where we have enough connectivity. So from broadband to all kinds of connectivity to actually having sensors that actually connect these plants or the equipment in these plants back into an environment where they feel that all is connected and it's all digital. It's a long process. It's not a revolution that happens overnight. It actually takes a long time for an industry like this to evolve. And we're at this point where a lot of these technologies that are helping to actually accelerate this process or this evolution path towards this revolution. And as I was actually working in, back to Joel's point about sensors, I actually used to put those sensors, the sensors that he's talking about, I actually used to implement those sensors, go into big industrial plants, take their outdated equipment, which was sometimes about 30 years old, and actually put sensors on it and connect it back into big data systems. What happened after was it just stopped. Nothing happened after. And that's really where this industrial revolution or this industrial innovation stopped, because then people didn't know what to do. And this is really where we realized that the challenge for these companies is they can get to this point and they start to generate a lot of data, but afterwards they didn't know what to do with it. And we brought on actually a bunch of AI experts to see, because the use of AI really is to handle big data problems. The use of AI today is being used in a lot of other instances, but really, as I see it, in my personal opinion, the use of AI is actually solving the problems that we haven't even thought of before. And that's really where innovation lies. So when you look at these industrial environments, they were only using about 1% of their data. The rest of the 99% was being unused, and the value of using that data was just being left on the table. And so that's really where we saw this opportunity to actually start using an AI-powered platform to help this industry transform. What we wanted to do for them is actually simplify the challenge of solving the data problem for them. And that's not, it's not about adding more bodies or throwing more BI tools at it. It's actually providing a sense of innovation and automation to this industry. When you go on a plant floor, you would see these people have been doing these things and running these processes for years and years in the same manner. And in order to actually then transform and help them understand the value of technology, you have to first go in and help them change their mindsets. It's kind of changing their belief system sometimes. And so it has taken us a while, but now we have been very successfully actually working with some of the world's largest plants in allowing them to actually apply AI into their environment, use the data that they actually collect from all of their equipment and processes, connect it back into this platform, and use it for operational efficiencies, be it actually reducing the cost of maintenance. So where they would actually have 10 guys sitting and managing one operation, they actually use this technology where they can predict these problems before they happen. If a generator is going to fail, and it's going to actually affect the energy that they're going to be using in order to run their turbines. Now they don't have to wait on 6 months before they can replace it and order it. They can actually identify well in advance, and the message gets relayed back into their supplier or their maintenance team that can come and look at it at a scheduled time. When you look at production processes, they can actually start looking at to identify the failure of and the quality of the production that they're running. They also actually, we're helping some of the companies in Ontario right now on their energy saving side. So when they actually start reducing the amount of fuel that they're using to generate power, it also helps them reduce the carbon emission. And you know how much Ontario government loves the greenhouse gas emission side. And so one of our customers using that benefit is actually using that benefit to go and apply for those 5 million grants of GHG. Those are the kind of things that when you start applying technologies that, like AI, start helping you to think differently. And I wanted to lay it out in an industrial environment from the beginning to the end. So when we go in and we start talking about AI to our customers, they actually start looking at things differently. It starts all the way from how they design their products, all the way to the assembly and then post-production side. So when they look at design and they look at applying AI, they look at applying AI to see how many different designs can I actually try out. So they have lots of data and aspects related to that design concept. They start applying AI and then start looking at what is the best design concept that now I can take into the production side. When it goes into production, I'll tell you a couple of interesting production sites because we work with one of the world's largest ag processing plants. They run their fermentation processes in the same way forever and ever. Now they're actually using AI, plugging in the data from their fermentation processes and actually looking at when they can stop, and this is a batch process, when they can stop that batch and improve the asset utilization and move on to the next batch. What it has helped them to do is increase their production side, the quality of production. Their assets, which would fail every 3 years, they have extended the lifetime of those assets by about 30%. We're working with one of the world's largest automotive manufacturer in Germany. They have robots that run their entire welding and their paint process. They actually use AI to optimize and use that to optimize their entire welding process so they can reduce, and their error is now 0.3% of failures. So Germans being perfect engineers, that's where they want to apply AI. And when I talk about AI, it goes back into this industrial evolution And I say it's real because Uber is the best case that you can see. To somebody's point earlier, how AI is transforming the job side and the economy is if you look at the application of AI in an environment like Uber, it has created a new economy for us, which is the shared economy, where the users are contributing to it, but actually the drivers on the other side have actually got a new set of jobs that didn't exist before. And that's really the power of AI that can be applied in certain scenarios. And I always relate it back to them because I think they have given rise to a new economy. That's where I see ourselves actually doing the same, where we're allowing the manufacturers to take their level of jobs to a higher level, think about how to optimize, think about how to increase productions, instead of trying to actually sit there and watch their screens and just look at diagnostics. That's it, yes.
Thank you, Humera. I know we're running a little bit late, so maybe we can keep the applause to the end. I know we have also a couple of questions, so let's see how we can get to that. Miron, do you want to come up here?
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'll help you make up the time. So I think as the press is being put up, just a quick question. How many folks have heard of Leo Pharma before today? Wow, nice. I typically get like 5-10%, and primarily, as I mentioned, because it is a Danish company, headquartered in Copenhagen, and it is not a big pharma company. It's a fairly niche company focused on dermatology, and really the kind of whole objective is to help people achieve healthy skin. So focus on chronic skin conditions like psoriasis, eczema, certain types of melanoma, so on and so forth. Now the cool thing about Leo Pharma is that it's owned by a foundation. So it's not a public company. Actually, there are no shareholders of Leo Pharma, and there's no Wall Street, right, pushing us every quarter for kind of shorter term profit and revenue. And what that allows Leo Pharma to do is kind of two things. First of all, every year Leo reinvests 100% of the profit that it makes back into the business, into things like R&D and into interesting initiatives like the Leo Innovation Lab. And it allows Leo to kind of do longer-term initiatives, somewhat more experimental and kind of higher-risk experiments. And I would say about 3 years ago, Leo created the Leo Innovation Lab. So they put aside about $100 million for this initiative. They selected 3 pilot countries, UK, France, and Canada, to open up the Leo Innovation Labs. Now Leo Pharma has affiliates in about 100 countries. It's about a 2 billion euro company. So we are in Canada. We do have an affiliate, but we did select Canada to be an innovation lab out here in Markham. And the interesting thing about the Leo I Lab is that we don't develop any pharmaceutical, medical devices, any kind of traditional pharma products, but rather we focus on digital therapeutics. And I have a few examples of the kind of things that we've built so far. Now, another thing that allows us to move really quickly and I guess enable innovation is that we are an independent operating unit within Leo Pharma. So we have our separate board of directors, and unlike kind of traditional corporate environments where an innovation lab comes up with an idea, they flip it over to the mothership, and typically it's either too risky or there isn't enough ROI in it. The iLab is fully independent, so we have a separate board of tech entrepreneurs. One of the board members on the Dragon's Den or Shark Tank in Copenhagen, another one IPO'd a tech company. So very sophisticated entrepreneurs. We have about 100 individuals. And again, non-traditional pharma capability, so front-enders, back-end, AI, data scientists, so on and so forth. The things we focus on, I mean, one of the things that Leo created, the Innovation Lab, one of the reasons was that, of course, if somebody, let's say, has psoriasis, a big flare-up on their face, of course, medication and treatment is very important. But there's a whole bunch of other areas that impact this individual's life, anything from stress management to diet and nutrition to intimacy and relationship issues to medication and treatment adherence. And those are the kind of things that we focus on in the Leo Innovation Lab. Now, the interesting thing about the way we work is that we actually don't have any revenue targets. So me as the head of Canada, I don't need to drive $10 million, $20 million of revenue. The only KPI, the only number that's kind of on my back that's going to determine whether I have this job this time next year or not is how many patients we've helped. And that's the only number we track. And of course, with digital, it's so much easier to kind of to track it. And then the second thing is that everything we do is what we call above brand. So when we build an app or a solution, it's not brought to you by Leo Pharma, buy Moldova bet 200 milligrams. It's pure play above brand. And that allows us to go directly to kind of patients. And over the past 18 months, we've helped about 1.5 million patients already. And most of them are not Leo patients, or some of them don't even have skin conditions, which is kind of interesting. The way we work is very much like a lean startup. So we don't spend any time writing business cases. Once we have an idea, and an idea can come from patients, from doctors, from derms, from GPs, from students, from whomever, from inside the iLab, we pitch it, very similar to a Shark Tank environment, to our board. If our board thinks it's an interesting idea, we put about $50,000 and we build a minimal viable product in 3 months. So rather than spend 6 months to a year writing business case, the traditional financial projections, focus group, price elasticity, we just build the product. It's a minimal viable product. Doesn't have to be perfect, but enough to kind of do a little beta launch with the market and let the market tell you whether it's a crappy idea or not. But also let the market tell you how they're using the product. I can tell you that in 90% of the time when we have a use case, when we have an idea, when we give it to the market, we're wrong. The market uses our apps or our solutions in completely different ways. So it's kind of a very interesting model where it's very fast, kind of very quick to learn, and it's kind of a 90 to 100-day MVP. And that really has allowed us to build about, in the past 18 months, a portfolio of 25 products. 5 of them we actually invested in, so they were kind of external acquisition. 20 we've built in-house. Now, fortunately, I'm not going to go through all of the 25 products, but really kind of 5 products which I think are making kind of the biggest impact for patients and beyond, and ones which right now we're piloting. So now we're in this phase where we're not building. We have about 25 products, as I mentioned. Now it's more about piloting. So partnering with insurers, with hospitals, with big employers, with whomever wants to take it and play with it and help us generate data and kind of learn about some of the applications that we've built. So I want to maybe spend the rest of the presentation just going through a few examples really kind of quickly. The first one is a product that I love. It's called Clickit. Again, it took us 3 months to build. Essentially, it's a little button, Bluetooth button. It's a physical button, and a stupid, simple kind of app that pairs with the Bluetooth button. The kind of the theory of the case, the idea was that we know that for patients with skin conditions like psoriasis, about 50% of patients actually pick up their prescription, and it takes them about 28 days to do so. And once they do, medication adherence is very, very low, not just for skin conditions, but for other conditions as well. So we created these buttons. They're multicolored. You can stick them on multiple medications. You create a little schedule to say, I need to take my birth control at 1 p.m. every day. I need to take my vitamins. I need to take my cream, so on and so forth, and pair it with the different colors. And then when you take your medication, you press the button. It lets you know that you've taken it. So I would say that we've produced about 10,000 of these buttons. Only 5% of the buttons are being used for medication adherence, which for us was quite a learning. So one of the first things, for example, was Constable Hospital called me, and they're like, we've noticed that patients that, let's say, after hip surgery or orthopedic surgery, once they're more active post-surgery, they can recover faster. Can we use these Clickits in any way? So and the answer was absolutely. Let's take a ward. Let's put 20 Clickits in the centralized nursing station. Let's take 20 patients and tell them 3 times a day, get up, go to the central nursing station, press the Clickit. We're talking to Weight Watchers. We're giving a green Clickit every time you do something healthy, a red Clickit every time you do something not so healthy, and you can track your progress. So this is just an idea of, we had a hypothesis. We produced these kind of Clickits, and all of a sudden this thing is taking a life of its own, and it's essentially become not a medication adherence tool, but a behavioral tracking tool, right? Which is an interesting journey for us. Another thing we've built, this is somewhat more related to skin, is a tool called Imagine. One of the things we heard from patients is that patients with skin conditions, they can take their medication, maybe it's been 3-4 days, they just don't see enough progress. So they either become depressed, they give up, they go back to their doctors, recycle through medications. So we created, again, a very simple app, which essentially allows you to take a picture of your skin once a day, and it shows you the progress. And now that we launched it maybe 2 months ago, we have about 50,000 images. We can now start getting intelligent about the images. We can say, hey, Miron, it's been 2 days. You may not see progress, but your skin is 4% healthier. Right? Individuals of your demographic with this skin condition on this medication typically see 100% clear skin next Wednesday. Keep it up. Just an example of an app, and of course it's helping us build data on the back end. This is a built in Canada, built-in market innovation called InTouch, which is a teledermatology platform. Believe it or not, we have 600 dermatologists in Canada. For about 35 million plus people. Actually, it's 400 because 200 of those derms practice cosmetics. So really 400 medicinal dermatologists, so very long lines, especially for follow-up. So we built a telederm app, and again, we're piloting it at Sunnybrook and other areas. And then I would say the last one, mental health is extremely important. Things like psoriasis, it's an inflammatory condition that's impacted by stress. This is a company on the West Coast we invested in called Pacifica. And there are a lot of apps that can help you track your mood, relaxation. They play music, they show you a candle. But this is one of the only apps we've seen that actually had clinical data behind it using cognitive behavioral therapy. So I like to think of this as having a kind of a therapist in your pocket. So, for example, if you say that, I'm afraid of public speaking, what Pacifica would do is once a day they'll send you these tasks to do. So, Miron, today go and sing a song in a public bathroom. Or today go up to a stranger and ask for the time. So it's literally using CBT therapy to help you. And again, it shows you that it's not just skin. It goes beyond skin. And of course, we're working with Pacifica to kind of also build a skin module for us as well. And I think that's it. I mean, where we are now is we're piloting. We have about 25 pilots in Canada. And the way we approach it is we just provide our solutions and we let people play with it, or if it's a good partner, we can actually co-build something. We build it very quickly. We know how to build digital therapeutics. If there's an interesting idea, we're happy to partner and co-build things together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. So we have our last presenter here, Dave.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I just want to talk to you a little bit about innovation and some of the things that we're doing at Magna International. A couple slides on our company first. We're $36 billion per year in sales. We're the largest North American-based auto parts supplier. We're also an integrator of driver assistance systems. We have 161,000 people operating in 29 countries, supporting all the major car companies throughout the world. In addition to that, one unique thing about us is we also make cars for the car companies. So I would think that some of the people in this room are driving vehicles built by Magna. We have the capacity to do about 250,000 cars per year. And we're also the most diversified auto parts maker in the world. So we have a very broad array of components and systems that we supply to the car companies. I want to cover 3 topics today that are on the forefront of innovation: electrification, autonomy, and new mobility. So starting with electrification, we're all familiar with cars being piston-powered, engine-powered vehicles. We're starting to see, of course, more hybrids and electric cars on the road, and we'll see more of that going forward. How's it going to look in the future? Today, about 99% of the cars sold in 2016 will have piston engines in them. We see a small amount of plug-in hybrids and electrics and micro-hybrid. Micro-hybrid is essentially stop-start, so mainly piston engine driven. Going out to 2025, we'll see hybridization really coming on strong. Still, piston engines are going to be, we figure, about 94 to 97% of the market included, but electrification is going to enable the industry to improve fuel economy, reduce CO2 emissions, and electrification is going to be necessary to meet the requirements, the government legislated requirements in most regions in the world. So we have a very broad array of products supporting electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles, including things to support accessory drives like electric pumps, but also traction drive products. For example, on the Ford Focus, we supply the drivetrain for that, including inverter, transmission, and electric motor. On the Volvo V60, we're supplying an electric rear axle differential. So the front axle is engine driven and the rear axle is electric motor driven, and that gives you four-wheel drive for free when you set up that configuration. So that's a really nice layout. And then we're marketing our intelligent e-drive, which includes the entire drive system for electric vehicles going forward. On the autonomy side, you know, we're the largest maker of cameras in the world for cars, and our cameras are highly feature contented, including things like adaptive cruise control and lane departure warning and so on. And we're seeing a lot of press about fully autonomous vehicles. Going forward, we think it's going to be quite a while before, you know, they're sold by the millions, fully autonomous vehicles. But in the short term, what can we do with our capabilities and that of the industry is some comfort and convenience features, but mainly save lives and save accidents. So if you look at some of the things that we're working on right now, you know, integrating radars, LiDARs, camera systems, and so on to provide currently semi-autonomous features to our customers. We're able to do a lot of things to enhance the driving experience and reduce accidents. But not only in cars, I just want to step over to manufacturing for a second. If you look at what's possible today with manufacturing, we looked around for robotics to be able to enable something like this, which is the assembly of a latch with just a pile of parts tossed on the table, where the robot has to recognize the parts, orient them, and put them in the right place. And we found nothing nearly capable other than in the movies. But so we had to make our own system. So we partnered with some very smart people, and this is what we came up with. If you look here, some of the challenging things, I think it's going for the spring now, yeah. So this is a really, for the computer, quite a thoughtful thing to try and figure out how to bend a spring into place, but we were able to get all that going. So we're going to be rolling this out in a number of locations for different product areas. Back to cars again, looking forward, what's going to be happening. So if the left gray bar is level 0, that's no autonomy, and the far right bar is full autonomous, and then in between you have various levels of autonomy. Going out to 2025, the high autonomous, which is full autonomous level 5, and level 4 where you can kind of turn your brain off, is really only going to be less than 5% of vehicles sold. So, you know, certainly we already see autonomous vehicles on the road today, and we will see more going forward, but it's going to be to full autonomy going to be slow. So these are some of the products that we make: automated emergency braking, lane departure warning, and so on to help manage safety. We are working with the Michigan Department of Transportation and 3M in a construction zone to try and learn about edge cases. So when there's snow on the road, when there's construction and so on. So they've got a 3-mile stretch of I-75 that's set up as fully connected and with heavy construction work going on for the next few years, so we can learn and practice these type of things that are challenging for autonomous vehicles. We've done some demonstrator vehicles. This is our L3 demonstrator, where we started in Michigan, went up through Canada to Sarnia, and then back up to Traverse City to the Center for Automotive Research Summit, driving our L3 or level 3 autonomous car 92% of the time fully autonomous. If you look at our cars, the Magna stuff that we build, they look like normal cars. A lot of other people are doing autonomous. You'll see them in the news, and they haven't sort of worked on making things, reducing sensor size, reducing power, compute power requirements down to what is necessary for automotive. But we're very focused on making things that are going to be real and on the road by normal drivers and look normal. We've done a Max 4 vehicle, which is our level 4 autonomous vehicle that we ran in Berlin as a demonstration. And that was quite well received by the press. We were rated the #1 emerging technology company in autonomy by Morgan Stanley. And just want to talk about new mobility for a minute. We're trying to understand now what that means to the auto industry. There's a lot of talk about what it could mean, but certainly as we look at car sharing, ride hailing, and so on, if you think about when an Uber car comes to pick you up, do you care whether it has a lot of chrome on it? Probably not, right? So the cars going forward, some of the requirements are going to be different, and we're working hard to try and understand that. On the cybersecurity topic, because of connected vehicles, we're seeing a lot of new threat vectors through whether it's USB ports, Bluetooth, over-the-air communication. And so we've got a solution for that with a domain controller where we monitor activities in the car, can do over-the-air monitoring, over-the-air fleet inoculation from viruses. On the I'm going to switch again to open innovation. So this is one of the things that we're doing. This is one of my roles in the company, is to look outside the company for partners and companies that can help us. So we've done a number of investments over the last 3 or 4 years, both on small companies and on investment banks that are investing in like companies to us to work together. And then we also look, in addition to outside the company, we're looking inside the company. On the right side, you see we do an innovation challenge with our employees. We ask them things like, what would you think is a way to make a car safer? And then we're talking to young people as well. You see on the left side, we've done a number of innovation challenges with university students, the car buyers of the future, and really good thinkers. And we ask them what kind of features they'd like to see in vehicles, and we get a lot of good feedback there. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I'll be ready to take any questions after. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience? No? I have a question. I guess the first one is for Dave. When do you think we can all buy fully autonomous vehicles? When do you think something like that will be, one, available, and two, affordable?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk in the press on that. Certainly, you know, we see autonomous vehicles out there today, so they do exist. I don't see them very often myself, but we know they're out there because of the press, and if you go to California, you might see a Google car or something like that. But as we go forward, we'll see a lot more strengthened semi-autonomous. Vehicles will be sold and maybe marketed as autonomous, and certainly they'll be autonomous in certain conditions. So what we'll see is over time, vehicles not moving from semi-autonomous to autonomous digitally, like 0-1, but gradually where they'll be able to do autonomous things in certain areas, like on a highway on a summer day to start with, and then slowly going to other areas. The day that you can go in the back seat of your car and take a nap while you drive from here to Windsor, I think personally, is a few decades away, where that will be, it could be possible on a demonstrator fleet, but where there's 1 million vehicles of that type sold per year and you and I can buy them, I think is a few decades off, my opinion. Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions? All right, Miron, question for you. You've mentioned some external enablers of innovation. Which ones do you think are critical, and how does York Region enable them? Or how could York Region enable them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so if I were to kind of take a step back, I mentioned we're in the UK, France, and Canada, and by far Canada is leading the way in terms of the number of products and pilots that we have going in the ecosystem. And I really think it speaks to the strength of the ecosystem that we have here, because you know, as you guys know, any cluster, it's important to obviously have all the players, but also how they're interconnected, and the strength of those interconnections is key. And you know, in York Regions, we have players, whether it's Mars or Venture Lab, that can really help enable you. I mean, for example, I know that I've worked very closely with the Venture Lab when I had to set up pilots. So instead of going to 100 different recipients of potential pilots, they helped me organize a few days where they've invited the community, right? So it's those kind of, I think, enabling capabilities that are really helpful. But I also think that beyond the ecosystem, I just find that working with Canadian companies and companies here in York Region, I mean, it's I would say, less of a conservative and risk-averse culture that a lot of people think, especially outside of Canada. I know that when I present some of the solutions that we have to an insurer or a hospital, probably 7 times out of 10, they're willing to play with it. They're willing to say, you know what, let's try it. When I go to a big insurer in the US, essentially they tell me, come back when you have data, and come back to me when you have clinical trials, before we're willing to play with it. So there's a willingness to play here, which I think really helped us accelerate where we are versus other geographies.
Thank you. Question for you, Humera. What do you think is the biggest barrier to companies, specifically manufacturing, and adopting AI?
One of the things that I would say is actually just being able to share their data outside for the purpose of using AI. And you can call them data hoarders, and this is really where the changing their mindset in order to come out and be able to share and let somebody else do something with it is a new concept to them. So I find that that's one of the major concerns that they have. I would also say one other thing is not knowing what to do. AI is a very open space right now, so it's not like it's an ERP system. You go in and you plug it in. You know that there's a need for an ERP system, or it's a billing or a CRM system. So you actually have to work with them in hand-holding them through the process to say where AI can start to create value. So I think there are lots of these projects which are called AI projects. Nobody really knows where to go with it. So that's the other challenge that we find is people come with very broad approaches. Then you have to actually get to a point of where is it that you're looking to apply. So if they can get over those two things, I think those two are the main adopters or barriers to their adoption that I see.
Okay. Thank you. And lastly, Michael, what kinds of programs and organizations have you found that helped support innovation at your organizations?
Thanks for asking. Well, of course, we've got, as Humera mentioned, we've got a rich infrastructure and collection, I guess, of different companies with different skills in York Region itself, which I think is great. My partners, of course, and sponsors. And others. But also I think we've got some good support systems like the Ontario Centres for Excellence, who have provided us with some funding. Venture Lab, of course, which I'm anxious to work with more. So there's just a lot of different things that you can benefit from in York Region.
It's very vibrant, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Any questions? I think that takes us, oh, there's a question back there.
What do you see as the role of government in terms of implementing policy that will somehow address top-of-mind concerns from this major corporations about releasing the data into the open? And then the second question is about, we talk a lot about innovation. Now, what's the gap that we have to address in terms of preparing today's workforce to these future jobs that are going to involve a lot of automation, analytics?
Okay. You've asked two of my favorite questions because I'm dealing with the first one right now in every place. So the government policies around data. The challenge is that when you go into every country, it has its own policies around making data available for this kind of a use, any use like this. And then you have regional policies as well that you have to get over. And the challenge that I see is when I deal with a company that has got plants all over the place, so if they have global plants, I have to comply with each one of the different regions. And you can just imagine what a challenge that is. That's I think my lawyers enjoy it, I necessarily don't. So this is something that we're trying to find a way to make it more centralized. Where do we find a neutralized place? Is it Switzerland? We're actually looking at that too. Is where you can say we're going to apply all of the data policies around it. So no, there is none today. And it's a big challenge that we have to go through. And it's not just actually, I can't say it's my customer's challenge, it's actually overall a challenge for all of us. So this is really something which I'm trying to see is it the World Economic Forum that actually plays a role in this? So we're actually working with different groups to try and find a central place where we can find a solution, it's not there as yet today.
Well, a lot of
unfortunately.
policy people here and sort of governmental people here, so I think that's a very, very poignant question and sort of something to consider as they themselves want to see their own regions, their own governments participate in such an economy.
Correct, and I am speaking very loudly about it in all the different places because, as I said, it's not helping us in any way, and we can't help the customers.
It's somewhat the precursor.
Yeah, and your other question about the job side. So my opinion is that in the next 10 years, when you look at the manufacturing side, the low-level jobs, when you see anything that is less, up to $25, $30 an hour, those kind of jobs are going to transform and probably not exist because you see the tools the robots that are going to take their place and the processes that are going to evolve. Those jobs won't exist. My best example for seeing where I see the people getting ready to actually transform and get ready for adopting AI and new set of technologies, when I go to Germany and I go into certain plants and there's no human around. It's actually completely automated. I was in a plant in Austria, out like 2 hours away from Vienna, in Linz, and there was a farm, and right across from it, there's the silicon plant, and that plant, when we took a walk through it, there was no human. It was all completely automated. So I think the learning from there was what they have implemented in Germany and Austria are these specific programs that when kids are going through their high school, so when they enter high school after 8th grade, they actually go out and do these apprenticeship programs. The kids are going out and learning these. If your interest is on the manufacturing side, then you go out and take that program. So you can actually go out and spend the next years in as educating yourself as well as learning skills. And these kids are the ones who are going to eventually take over these plants and places, right? And they're all about digital. So they come in, and so they're structuring these plants, working together with these kids who are learning, plus helping to transform their environments. And that's something that we haven't adopted as yet in North America. Yes, they're off and on programs. We're part of the National Engineering Council, part of the Vice President's office in US, but that's still not there. We're still talking about a very theoretical level. It hasn't been implemented. There are lots of programs that Germany and the rest of Europe is doing that we need to adopt. And I think it's a collaboration between the educational side, the government side, and then the industrial side.
Thank you.
I would like to add there that it's not just the children, but also the seniors, the adults of the day that could also benefit. And I think what you're talking about here is the value of continuous education, continuous learning.
Correct.
I think we may have another question. Was there a question, sort of the gentleman in the back? Table 14?
It was specific to GDPR. I was going to ask, and it was very well covered in that response.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question there?
I work with a lot of small businesses and people who are entrepreneurs. So how would you help somebody who has a new idea on their own, say they invented a better coffee mug, but don't understand technology? How do we help them get involved and connected?
Is that directed to one particular panelist or open-ended?
Open-ended.
Does anybody want to take that? Myron, you want to take that?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in because we deal with that every day. I would just say, how can you test your idea in 90 days, right? So how can you put something to the market and if you want to assess whether it's a good idea or not, it doesn't have to be a technology play. If you want to open up a new restaurant, you don't need to invest a lot of money in the infrastructure first and then marketing and then hoping people will come, right? You can go to multiple local chefs and put different kind of cuisines together or go to food trucks and try different things, right? So my question would be, can you come back to me in 90 days, having tested your idea with some market, some real market feedback, not just focus groups?
Thank you. I think that's it, and we're going to wrap. Thank you.